I call myself a VC by day, builder by night.
Is this very intentional, or is this something you're just purely driven by curiosity?
One of the fun rules I have is that I never decide what I'm going to build until I sit down. BabyAGI, as much impact as it had, was 100 lines of code. AI will be running companies themselves, right?
What do you think is the bottleneck towards that future?
All right, hey guys, welcome to Frameless. Frameless is a podcast where we explore the raw ideas, bold convictions before they're obvious. We talk to founders, investors, and designers who really see the world differently. Now today we have a super incredible guest. His name is Yohei Nakajima. He is a general partner at Untapped VC, which he co-founded. He's a father of 3 kids, and he's also the father of BabyAGI, which he's most notably known for right now. Spoke at TED Talks, and he's part engineer, part painter, part VC. He is such an interesting blend of a lot of things, so we're excited to dive in today. But yeah, please welcome Yohei.
Thank you for having me.
So Yohei, I know I gave the kind of like a high level overview, but maybe in your own words, if you could help with a quick intro.
Yeah, I call myself a VC by day, builder by night. During the day, I spend myself, doing a lot of things that other VCs do: meetings, calls, emails, and then after I get my kids down at night, if I have energy, I will build stuff. And a lot of what we build is tied in with our VC work. It's part R&D, kind of researching what could be done with the technologies, part diligence, trying to better understand the markets, and part relationship building with other builders who I collaborate with through this large social network that is the internet. And then part of it is marketing. It has helped me grow my brand. So that's me in a nutshell. And then, as you said, on the weekends, I spend a lot of time with my 3 kids who are 8, 6, and 3. So a really fun age.
I was telling Kaz, like, it's such an interesting way to like even describe like what type of person you are. And the way that I would describe it is almost like kind of like a tinkerer / experimenter, which is not a word that I would normally use for any type of VC. But yeah, can you tell us a little bit more of like the things that you like really get your hands dirty with and like go into detail on? Because yeah, I think a lot of people don't actually do that.
Yeah, I mean, a part of it is the way in which I build, which is there's constraints, right? So I build on nights and weekends, usually after I get my kids down. So I build for very short amounts of time. And so I'm to some extent, I'm forced to build simple projects. And it's really a way to share ideas, right? BabyAGI, as much impact as it had, was 100 lines of code. A lot of the stuff I build is driven by my own curiosity. One of the fun rules I have is that I never decide what I'm going to build until I sit down. I never think, oh, this weekend I'm going to work. I mean, I'm never going to plan to work on something on a weekend. I'll have ideas in my head, but I don't decide until I sit down. And what that allows me to do is if a new idea pops through my mind throughout the week, I have the complete freedom to work on it. And so what you see me do is jump around and work on random ideas that are sometimes, come out of nowhere and sometimes driven by something that was just released. And I see building as a way to share my ideas, right? That's really my intention. So it's less about building again, with the limited time, I'm not going to build a production ready product that's ready to scale, at least not yet. But I think I can put some ideas down into code that other people can learn from or be inspired by.
It's I love that. And just to give like even a sense of where Yohei is, like I think I first heard of you when you're working on PixelBeasts. And then
I'm wearing my PixelBeasts shirt.
Amazing, always sharing. And then Kaz, I think you first heard of it through
Pippin? The meme coin AI, the AI powered unicorn.
Yeah. So it's like we've already seen Yohei throughout like his journey of just like testing and like building things. And then, with BabyAGI, I feel like that was probably like your most like notable, like most people kind of heard about you from that taking off. And like I think at first, like I think I've only known you through like your Twitter profile picture. Like I feel like that's kind of like the view that I had of you. But then especially after like we got to know each other more in person and stuff, and seeing everything that you built throughout that entire journey has been like super inspiring.
Yeah. And one thing that inspires me is you identify the trend so early and you go deep in them and you build brand around that space. And the unique way to do that is just actually building. So like, when did you start? Like, is this very intentional or is this something you're just purely driven by curiosity?
I think it's largely driven by curiosity. I mean, it is intentional today. Now that I figured out how well it works as a VC, and now that it's become my brand, it's intentional. But it's always been something I've done. I think I started coding when I was in high school. Again, never as a job, but I remember when I was very active in the LA startup ecosystem. I was running an educational school for founders. One of the things I did was do a partnership with this coding platform called Treehouse. We tried the flipped classroom model where the students did a section of the Treehouse course by themselves, and then we got together to workshop it and ask questions. So anyways, that was a really fun time. But I spent Christmas break learning Ruby on Rails and built out LATechEvents.com, which was a calendar for tech events in LA. And that was something I built for myself and I shared with the community. I think there's something fun about just putting something out there to the point where people can see it.
I guess you're telling us about this a little bit during lunch today, but what is the flow of, now you're building in public often, people find you, how do you kind of use, what you've built today to talk about deals, to choose which founders to invest in? How does that work for Untapped?
Yeah, so I think I say that a third of the stuff I build is internal, stuff we use as a VC firm. A third is kind of for founders in the hopes of being able to help portfolio companies and also connect with founders. And a third are purely experimental. We use a lot of AI at Untapped. Starting with ChatGPT, everyone's using ChatGPT. Most of my teammates, if there's a question they could ask AI, they'll probably ask AI first and then share their chat log with us in the Slack versus coming to me first. One of the things we were talking about recently, just over lunch, was we have a couple email addresses internally. So, deals at untapped.vc, updates at untapped.vc, where I can just forward emails that come in and it'll extract the data, right? If it's deals, it'll extract how much they're raising, what they do, what their URL deck is. If it's an update email from a portfolio company, it'll extract, asks, challenges, updates, fundraise, the kind of next fundraise plans. Those are useful. I know one of the things that excited you're hearing me talk about it, was on Monday mornings we do a weekly stand-up that's recorded.
Yeah.
One of the things I'll do is usually somewhere on Monday I'll grab this transcript of the meeting we have internally with my with a screenshot of my calendar and sometimes even a screenshot of my Gmail inbox, and I'll just ask ChatGPT to figure out when I should work on stuff, and I'll just grab stuff and plug it into my calendar for me and just suggest it for me.
That's cool. So the AI will literally just say, "Oh, work on this at 2:30 p.m. on Thursday. Yeah. Work on this, blah blah blah.
This seems like a bigger project. This seems priority. You should work on it on Tuesday. Let's plan on you working on this on Friday. You should set aside this time for emails."
And how close is it to the point where it's fully automated? Eventually, it just puts everything in your calendar for you.
Right now, I'd say it's probably 70%.
That's
but I'm only, and it's getting better slowly, but it's only I'm using one ChatGPT session to just keep repeating it. So it stores a little bit of my preference, but it's not perfect, right? I'd ideally love it to have all the context and be able to customize preference setting. But I think I need a little more architecture around that beyond ChatGPT.
People are talking about context a lot these days. Where do you see the actual bottleneck to fully automate your workflow?
I think it's organization, right? The data is there. The data is easy to access, right? Here's all my emails, right? Here's all the documents I've ever read. Here's all the history. But realistically, the more context you feed into an LLM, the worse it kind of gets to some extent at grabbing the right info. What you ideally want to do is only feed in the relevant information as context. But to be able to do that, sometimes the context is a summary, right? How many times you've emailed someone. So what you really kind of want to do, and I think the direction we're heading is more structured organization of memory and data so that we can build AI systems that can more efficiently and effectively grab all the context that's necessary, but also only the context that's necessary.
Tell me more about some of the other tools, because I know we brainstorm a ton of the things that you guys are doing, the Notion one.
Oh, well, yeah, that was talking about internally, right? I'm the builder guy, but if you every other Monday, I'm coming back into our weekly team meeting, being like, "Hey, look what I built, guys!" And at some point, both of my teammates were like, "Can we get Replit accounts?" I was like, "Yeah, go for it." So they both have Replit agent accounts. They're both, kind of playing around. And my ops person who has no coding experience came to me and built a kind of master executive mobile-friendly dashboard using Replit that sits on top of our Notion data. And so that was really cool to see that happen, right?
That's so cool. So it's like Notion has the entire data of like, whatever you want to show. Using Replit, they created like a separate interface. Now you can go check that out. It has everything. And your non-coding team member just like built this.
Yes.
That's amazing. I feel like the other thing too is like you're essentially creating a culture of doing that at Untapped, and every time you share it with the world, it's probably inspiring people to do that themselves.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
There was a LP GP retreat with this great group called Recast Summit, and I got to host a vibe coding workshop where I had LPs and GPs all pull up Replit, and I was like, just type in what you want. Let's go from there. And I like vibe coded a little app in front of them, and it was very. It was well liked. I think for a lot of people, especially people curious, like the biggest bottleneck is just like getting started. And then once you get started, yes, there's a lot of issues. Vibe coding tools need to get better and all that kind of stuff. But really, I think it's for anybody curious, it's worth it to just pick any vibe coding app, whether it be Replit, Bolt, Lovable, and just start playing around. Yep.
I love that. I think you do such a good job of just going to the details. And like you mentioned this briefly at lunch too, where like because you're going and getting your hands dirty, going to the details, you see what's missing in the space, or what's currently broken in the space, and like that's how you, I guess, like know what to be looking for founders, even, right?
Yeah, I'd even say like sometimes I don't notice, but other people notice.
Oh,
So I remember when, after I did BabyAGI, right? I mean, the followers I got were incredible. Like there's so much people way smarter than me, right? Who've been building kind of these AI engineering projects, and a decent number of people, but a few people especially kept bugging me about like KGs. I was like, what's a KG? They're like knowledge graph. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go look that up. And next thing I know, I built a little tool called Instagraph, which was, you send in some text and it'll use, it turns it into, relationships and edges using structured output, and then converts it into a visual graph. That led to a project called Minecraft, which was really early version of doing retrieval against a graph data structure. This was before GraphRag. And I ended up investing, after I talked to a dozen companies, invested in Falcor DB, a really, really fast graph database company. But yeah, that was very much largely driven by my follower base suggesting me pushing, like looking at a specific thing. So I often use Twitter as a way to just throw ideas out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll even tweet ideas that I'm not sure about. I just want to see how people respond, and I use that to like kind of build out my own intuition.
I feel like you've built out this perfect loop of throwing out ideas, but also receiving ideas, kind of knowing what to dabble into, quickly build in it, and then invest. And like I feel like your like time from let me look into this to I built something is like 3 days. Very, very short.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that because a lot of VC rely on it's a relationship business, right? Like, you connect with founders, like you really assess them, and whether you go through due diligence and you invest them. But your approach is like you start from building yourself first, and it's like, and then identify, what's missing in that industry, what's missing in the future, and then you start, we need this idea, like who is building in this space? Like, could you talk to me a little bit more about the way you deal source for your VC?
Yeah, I think I've identified that we are very much a top-down investor, and we're increasingly so as we kind of identify our brand around this. But we have been early in identifying trends, so that's something we take pride in and want to keep doing that. We then will pick a kind of micro trend within it to go deep, and we'll go very deep, building stuff, talking to people, tweeting ideas, reading. Until we have some kind of conviction that we feel strongly about, that we don't think other people have yet. And then we'll proactively reach out and market to those startups. Which means at any given moment, there's a handful of themes and ideas that are floating in my head that I'm proactively searching for. I'll say that this isn't, like, we're not unique in that. Like, especially if you get to Series A, there's a lot of firms that have 25 to 30 themes they're tracking. But for them, they have the luxury of looking at pre-seed and seed funding rounds and looking at the traction of companies they're looking at as signals on like what themes to track. I think as pre-seed investors, we don't have those signals. Like traction and funding rounds are a lagging indicator, which means we have to come up with a different way to build conviction that isn't based on data that comes from the venture market. And I think that's what we realized. That's where I realized the building in public is great. Right? I'm not the first person to say that, whatever the smartest people are playing on the weekends, right, become the next big industry, right? Computers are a good example of that. And I think that's still true today, again, not universally, but listening to what builders talk about and discuss with each other, to us is a very, very strong signal of places we want to pay attention to. And through building in public, I've been fortunate enough to be invited into some of these circles. So I'm part of a couple of builder chats where people are talking about challenges in building with AI, right? And I'm usually the only VC in that chat. So it helps, gives me some insight that I don't think other people have.
Super cool.
What's something that you're looking into or working on right now? I don't know if that's a secret or if you're allowed to say.
Well, one of the ideas I've been talking about a lot is, is kind of AI employee agent authorization, right? Is the idea that every enterprise or many enterprises will want all their internal employees to have an AI agent. But every AI agent that the employee uses must have different permissioning, because every employee has access to different data sets, different documents, and so I think we need more structure around how to manage that. And I think there's a couple of approaches to it. And one of our recent investments, I'm not going to talk about it here because it's not public, was in that space. But that was a space I was thinking about for at least 6 months. I kept saying it's a problem I want to see solutions for. So I was pretty excited to come across a team that I felt was building in the right direction there.
Nice. I love that. Yeah, I feel like even last time we chatted, you like mentioned it. You're like, this needs to exist. And then this time we chatted, you're like, found them.
There's a couple companies in the AI governance space, but I still think that's an interesting kind of internal, and maybe it overlaps with this a little bit, but I think a lot of enterprises want their employees to be using AI. But as they do, they're very aware of the risks that come with it. So I think companies want, and many of them need, a solution to monitor and manage which AI tools you are allowed to use as a company employee, and like how you're allowed to use them, and some better system structure for that. I think is one idea. So there's a couple ideas on the enterprise side. On the consumer side, again, this is going to be hard to invest in. Likely, just like it's a tough. IP is always tough, but I'm confident there's going to be Gen AI native IP companies. Right, every generation of technology. We see native companies building IP native to that generation. And a good example is in gaming. There's a couple companies really known for their mobile games. There's a couple companies really known for their social games. Right? Even Web3, right? You have Axie and Web3 games. So similarly, I would suspect that there will be Gen AI native IP companies in the gaming space, probably similar in film. So consumer IP is usually one of those, like it's either blown up or you're not sure if it'll work, so it's going to be tough to invest in, but it's a space I would love, it's a space I'm tracking.
Yeah, it's also the ones where it's like you never expect it to do really well, and it's like, oh, they're killing it. What is something that you've worked on or built that's just completely flopped? I'm giving you a tough question now. Flopped, but you're like, it like changed the way I see things, or like I learned something, pretty critical from this?
Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by flopped, but I have probably made a dozen attempts at building a unified CRM calendar task management system with email client. Largely because I think I'm just trying to stuff too much into it, so it starts breaking at some point because I want to be able to build automations on top of it. So that's one that's kind of, I'd say, flop from a building standpoint, where I just can't get the quality I want.
And I guess what about it like breaks? Is it just a sheer amount of stuff, or is there like a certain piece that you're trying to make it fit and it's like just not working?
With these tools, going back to context management, and there are the coding tools themselves are getting better, but once a project gets very large, one of the things you want to do, it's hard to do, is when you add new features, you want to add it elegantly in a way that doesn't unnecessarily add complexity in the code. If the system has complete comprehension of your system, then it can do a better job. But the problem with today's tool is that you don't necessarily get the full architecture, diagram, structured, fed into the AI. So at some point, as I'm asking it to build new features, it ends up building duplicative features, right? And that kind of problem scales. Or sometimes it'll look in one folder for a file, won't find it, it'll create it, but it was actually in another folder. And so these things kind of slowly start making the actual code base a little more convoluted. And unless I take my time to go in and fix it, which I often don't do, the problem just stacks on top of each other and it starts breaking.
Actually, that is interesting where it's like, I guess when you hit a wall or something doesn't work, that's also your cue of, is there a company that's willing to solve this? Not necessarily that like, oh, that was a complete mess up, but oh, that's like the next opportunity.
Yeah, and there are a couple companies right now in the space that are doing more, even just for AI coding, which is more of a kind of, I would say like, they look like Copilot for project managers, where if you ask it to do something, it'll take a request, look at your code, build out all the kind of task, all the things it needs to think about, and kind of outline the project sheet before it dives in to start doing code. So I do think you're 100% right. Like that's exactly how I come across ideas that I want to see.
Yeah, win-win. I think Kaz was also talking to me about just like context and data, but putting that into our own personal lives too, where it's like if we want AI to like better manage our calendars or like, who to reach out to, it's just tough because nobody manages their day-to-day so well organized. What were some of the things that you were looking into for that?
So you're right, like you say, okay, hey, as AI assistant, I would like you to reach out to this person and book a meeting, right? Like then that implies like you have to have like very well organized CRM, like past communication histories, like the contacts, how do you know them? When was the last time you chatted? It's like, it almost feels like it takes a lot to organize all these like past information. So yeah, I mean, that itself just a lot. Yeah, so.
I mean, I've tried a lot of AI email assistants and AI email tools, and that is one of the things that seems to be missing right now, is that like some of them I do like, they do kind of start creating a personal profile of who you are and how to answer questions. But realistically, to your point, the tone of my voice when I'm speaking to someone is pretty distinct to each person, technically, right? Because you start picking up on the way they like hearing communication. So ideally, you're right, it would have a summary of interactions with that specific person. It would probably do an embedding search for similar people and see how you've communicated with similar people. If you're trying to write a response to an email, you want to see how you've responded to that person's previous emails, but you want to do a vector search against similar email content so that if someone else has asked you that question, you want to see how you answered that question. And then also the way you answer a specific question might change over time. So you want to kind of capture that and then also capture any trending changes.
Yeah.
And tone of voice, all that stuff.
Yep.
And I guess like one other question too that I had was, I feel like your approach to things is very unique. Like what is one contrarian belief that you have in the VC world that maybe not all VCs may agree with?
Again, I don't think there's any opinion that no VC has said. I mean, there's few, but I think one of the things that I feel pretty strongly about that I don't think as many people hold is the idea that investing in, the most hyped companies is the only way to be a good VC, right? I think there are many different strategies to investing in VC, and we actually, as an ecosystem, need a good balance of them. Specifically around an early stage, a lot of VCs are trying to get into the hot rounds, which again, it is a really good strategy. It is probably the best known strategy, but I don't think it's the only strategy, right? And I think that is, I think, contrarian to some people, to a large number of people. We need VCs, and again, I say that from a biased position, but we need VCs who aren't relying on other people's opinions to form their own opinions, right? VCs who are going to build their own conviction and invest in less obvious ideas, because that's the only way we're going to see less obvious ideas rise above. I think if every VC was chasing hype deals and just trying to get into the best companies, that would actually be a very inefficient ecosystem where we're overpaying for the same companies. And I think the more VCs can learn to build their own opinions without relying on others, the healthier the ecosystem will be.
What is a non-obvious idea that you took a bet on that that worked out, and that wasn't obvious back then?
Well, yeah, I don't. Well, I'd say one of the most non-obvious was, I think, when we did E2B. I don't think they were even working on code sandboxes yet, so that was more of a team market bet. So I think that would be the one that definitely pops to my mind. And another one that I think, again, working out really well is Pixels, which is one of the leading Web3 games. I think when we invested, they were pre-release as a game. And so I think that worked out really well. They have this kind of farming game that's native to Web3, and PixelBeasts was the first integration into the platform. Actually, it's a fun story where when I launched the NFT collection, I needed to find an event platform. I wanted to do a weekly event, and so I used this platform that was at the time I think called Mesh Online, and I invited the founder to one of our events. I used a separate token gating tool, so you had to own a PixelBeast to join the event. So I gifted the founder an NFT and said, you should come to this event. And then somehow I convinced him to integrate my NFTs into his event platform.
Oh, wow.
And then the reaction was so good, he decided to pivot into a Web3 game, which is at which point we invested alongside OpenSea and Animoca. But I did watch a podcast where he described what I did as bugging him into trying Web3. But given that they're doing really well, I think it was a good thing.
Wow. I feel like there's so many moments like that where you never expect something to turn out, and it just suddenly, like the coincidence of it just works out. I don't even know if this part's even going to go into the pod, but like you're talking about like fire dancing, and then that's just kind of led to meeting your now wife too. Like that's just pure coincidence.
Yes. I mean, I guess if in case it does go in, the quick story is that I was a fire dance performer at a weekly after hours burner event that bought a pizza oven. And the guy running the event knew my wife, so asked her to make pizza, and she was the new pizza girl, and I hit on her, and that's how we ended up meeting. She said no to me the first 2 weeks, but it was a weekly event, so I had a chance every weekend to talk to her, and then I think it was the third time she gave me a number. We got married 53 weeks after the day we met.
Oh, wow.
53 weeks.
Yes.
Wow.
This weekly cadence of build in public,
talk to her again. When you know, you know.
I love that.
I like that. I think there's a. I often talk about a success. Again, there's so many different ways to talk about success, but as two distinct ways of kind of approaching life as either a classical musician or a jazz musician is an analogy I often use. Classical music, again, I'm overgeneralizing here. With classical music, you usually have a sheet music in front of you, and the art comes from executing on that sheet music, how well you can execute on something that's planned and predefined. And obviously part of it is making that planning and predefining. With jazz, again, overgeneralizing, with jazz, there's a little bit more about you just start playing, and then you jam out with whoever jumps on stage. So it's more about improvising.
Yeah.
My brother is way more of a classical musician type, right? He's a chef. I mean, of course, he has some like unexpected things that came his way. But when he was starting out his career, when he went to learn cooking in Japan, he knew he was going to come back to the U.S. He picked a restaurant that had really good relationships with the best supplier, so he could build those relationships. So he had things planned out and kind of executed according to that. I remember when I was thinking applying to business schools, there was one of the essays they asked you for was, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I basically spent a whole page writing that if I end up anywhere I can expect today, I failed, because where I want to be in 10 years is somewhere unexpected. And so I do take that to heart, and I think it allows me to take advantage of unexpected opportunities more.
I feel like that's exactly like I'm not going to decide what I'm going to work on until I sit down.
Yeah, exactly the same way. I'm very non-committal. Yeah. It's fine. There's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah. Where do you see the future, like any like future predictions that you have that are like today not obvious for most people?
I think the idea that we can build, like AI will be running companies themselves, right? As opposed to just being partnered with people. I think still isn't that commonly held. And it's something that I've been thinking about for a while now. The original idea behind BabyAGI was I asked ChatGPT to help me prototype an autonomous startup founder. I think that if you were to take, a simpler, well-established business idea like, content marketing plus drop shipping or print on demand, I think those kind of businesses could be fully autonomously run. right? You could build an AI that monitors the news, looks for trending catchphrases, use Printful to slap it on a shirt and market it through TikTok and Instagram, right? And just have that autonomously run. So it's taking the hottest topic of the day and just like trying to sell T-shirts again. That's one idea. But ideas like that, I think, could be fully autonomously run. So I think we'll start seeing those pretty soon.
Like, I feel like one thing that people are today talking about is like the solo unicorn founder. But you're taking that a step further and being like, there's no founder, there's no team. Maybe they set up the beginnings of it.
I mean, there's technically a founder behind the agent. Somebody's got to build the system. But yeah, that's the idea. And I do think it's less about $1 billion company. I don't think you're going to build $1 billion company scaling a drop shipping business. But that's where we're going to start, and then we're going to see more and more creative businesses launched because of autonomous agents.
What do you think is the bottleneck towards that future?
More people working on it helps, I think, right? I think the technology is largely there, right? If we scaffolded it correctly, figured out the context management, figured out the roles, which is why I say if you start with a simple business, realistically, there's a lot of businesses that are largely automatically run by people. And I guess all I'm really suggesting is that if you add a little bit of reasoning on top of it, you can make it more autonomous. Where somebody working on a side business that's taking them 4 hours a week might be able to drop that to 0. But more people working on it. There's probably some more UI issues where the people who are working on autonomous agents still tend to be technical. But the kind of people who are going to come up with that idea, I think actually might not be technical, right? And so putting like all the most recent AI agent capability into hands of people who aren't technical, I think is where you get to see a lot of unique, interesting ideas that we haven't thought of yet.
I guess when people are, reaching out to you on social media and Twitter, right? And you're saying that, some of the best people that are going to be joining and working on this are like non-technical. It's, how do you know like who to work with, who to have a call with, who to chat with?
So part of it is driven by some of the ideas I have in my mind, right? So given the lack of time, if somebody reaches out and it squarely fits into an idea I've been thinking of, I'm more likely to talk to them. I see another aspect is unexpectedness, right? If someone pitches me an idea or a project that is in a space that I've never even heard of, that might also be interesting to me.
I guess one other question on my end too is, what is a product that you're excited about these days? Not allowed to be a portfolio company.
There's always a lot. I've already talked at length about Replit Agent. They're not a portfolio company. On the networking side, there's a really cool tool called Happenstance that I've started using with some of my portfolio companies. You can connect or upload your data from LinkedIn, Twitter, and your Gmail, and you can do a natural language search amongst your network. So I can just go in and say, hey, I'm looking for VCs interested in AI that live in Los Angeles, for example. And it'll like just go through my network and give me back. You can also have connect with people as friends. So I've invited my portfolio companies to be friends with me. So they can now search through my network in natural language.
Oh, interesting. And what happens after, like, let's say I find someone in your network, and then is it just like I reach out to you, be like, oh,
yeah. So if you're in my portfolio and we're friends on it, you can just search. If you're trying to connect with, somebody in the music industry in San Francisco, right? You could just search for that. It'll your network and my network will show up. And if you notice somebody you want to talk to and it's listed as part of my network, you just ask me for the intro.
Oh, wow. We should actually try that out.
Yeah, I'd love to use them. Yeah.
Oh, another one that's exciting that I came across. I think a lot of people heard about it recently. They kind of had the recent launch. It's called Shortcuts.
Shortcuts.
And it's probably the first AI that I've experimented with that I felt like did a good job of like reading and writing Excel.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I feel like that's a huge bottleneck. I mean, the number of people who use Excel in the world is incredible. The amount of data that's stored in Excel is incredible. But AI is not that good at reading or writing Excel. I've seen AI that can write tables, but when it comes to Excel, it's really about formulas, that how the formulas tie different sheets together. And so however they did it, which I'm guessing is a pretty robust multi-agent architecture, the Shortcuts team figured something out. I was able to upload some Excel sheets, ask questions about it. I did a good job. I asked it to just like build me out a pro forma spreadsheet for a kind of a made-up startup. And it gave me like 6 or 7 sheets that was all tied together with formulas, starting with like assumptions of number of customers all the way to cash flow, P&L.
It was perfect. Like
it was not perfect.
Oh yeah.
But it was like way further than I'd experienced.
Oh,
elsewhere.
I see. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the ideas that you talk about, like even in our previous discussions, I'm always turning around and be like, guys, Yohei's building such cool things. Like we gotta, do more, build more as well. So yeah, it's definitely like very inspiring, like seeing you build into that.
The most recent thing I built that I'm excited about, which is public, is VCpedia. It's on top of the X Twitter API. And I was actually trying to build an AI trends analyzer, which I did get to a certain point. But one of the things I noticed was that it was picking up funding rounds. So as a separate experiment, on a Friday, I was like, I wonder if I can capture funding rounds on Twitter. And on Monday, I showed my team a prototype. But on the back end, there's a couple of stored search queries that I can edit that run, every X number of hours. It then dedupes the tweets it found through the search. So for every single unique tweet, it'll feed through an LLM to ask, is there a funding round in here? Yes or no. And if there is, it'll run through another LLM to extract who's the investor, who's the company, how much did they raise, what's the round. And then it stores into a structured database of funding rounds, companies, investors. And then I think it uses Exa to enrich that a little bit. But if you go on, you'll see, I think there's a daily email that goes out, which is like the funding rounds of the last 24 hours. There's top trending startup section, which is based on the social signal, so the number of likes and number of tweets based on the company for today. And then there's a trending AI category, which is more like recent AI companies that raised a lot of capital. But it's kind of a poor man's Crunchbase, but again, right, on top of the Twitter API that was vibe coded in 3 days.
Wait, so when you sit down and you're like building this as an example, like how many hours are you working on this? Like, what's your process when you're actually in it?
So on the weekends these days, I mean, there's no set amount of time because I'm never working on one project. What I'll usually do when I'm logging off on Friday is I might open up 4 or 5 different projects that I've been working on. I'll quickly read through where they are, and then I'll say, okay, maybe this is the next step. And I'll sometimes I'll work on 5 or 6 different things at once, and I'll just write a prompt in, have it work, and then throughout the course of the weekend, every hour or two, if I'm playing in the backyard with my kids, I might pop into my office, just look at each project. Write one prompt and ask for one more thing for all 6, and then just walk away and go back with my day.
Oh, that's your process.
Yeah. So I'm never sitting there watching my AI do work.
That's actually very different from what I imagined. I thought you actually sit down 4-6 hours, pump out this one tool.
No. It's more like, hey, I'm gonna, try to fix this. I'll give a long prompt, and then I'll just step away, and then I'll come back, an hour later, and then just open up, look at my 6 projects. There are 6 different windows. Swipe. Prompt, swipe, prompt, swipe, prompt, swipe, prompt, and then go back and play.
Oh, wow, interesting.
I wonder if that's even motivating for other people to hear, because I feel like when they hear Friday, I thought of this idea, Monday it's out. It's like, oh, do I have to invest my whole weekend into this thing? And it's a very, more easily approachable sort of
But
way.
with Replit, for example, and I think a lot of other tools, Replit Agent, if I write a somewhat robust prompt, it'll take 30 minutes for the first till ask me another question.
Yeah. Because
it'll build 30, 40 files.
I see.
Same with the OpenAI Codex, which is also great. So I'm starting to switch off and use kind of combination of tools based on its strengths.
Yeah.
But yeah, it easily takes 20 to 30 minutes. So again, why sit there, right? My kids are outside. I can jump in, tell them grab I'm gonna refresh my coffee, jump in, grab a coffee, go sit down for 2-3 minutes and pop back out.
I like that.
Also, both with Replit Agent and Codex, which are the 2 key tools I use for coding with AI, they're both on mobile.
Oh.
So if I, if I'm out, again, I can quickly check my phone and add a little prompt and put my phone away.
Yeah. You could literally just do that right now too.
Yeah, I could do that right now. I could check on a project, right? Ask it to fix something, and then just put my phone away, and it'll keep working.
What are some other key tools that are important in your process?
I do use ChatGPT to do a lot of reasoning and thinking about a project before, not necessarily before I try it the first time, but often my process, if I come up with an idea, is I'll just sit down, prompt it to build a version. Usually what I notice is that what I prompted doesn't capture everything I thought. And especially, at least right now, I've noticed that rather than trying to fix something that was built the wrong way, it's actually easier to start from scratch. So sometimes what I'll do is then I'll take that initial prompt, I'll drop it into ChatGPT and say like, hey, I asked AI to build something with this prompt, but here's a bullet point, like feedback on what it tried to build for me and what I would change. Can you give me a better initial prompt where all of these would be incorporated?
Oh.
And then it'll spit me back a detailed prompt that kind of captures, and I'll use words like elegantly architected, those kind of things. And then I'll just take that new prompt, drop it in, and then I'll press go, and then see if it's close enough that I want to keep building on top, or see if I want to reprompt it from scratch.
And then go play with the kids and come back.
Yeah, exactly. But something like VCPD, I think that was probably the second or third iteration, right?
Wow. Yeah, no, I think that's super, super impressive.
Well, thank you. It's the tools that do most of the work. I'm just trying to learn how to use them.
If someone is, let's say, a VC wants to get more into actually like tinkering, building, getting their hands dirty, what is like a tip or a message you have for them?
That means I will really just get started and play around, I think. There's no better way to learn than play around. And I mean, I think even at a higher level today, right? A lot of people are asking about like, how do I prepare myself for a future with AI? And what I tell people is just try to get comfortable and familiar with it, right? I think it could be this, you could have said the same thing for internet, where there was a period of time where some people were considered good at Google. Right? Now it's like standard, but I think all the people who are good at Google, the only difference between them and other people were that they searched more. And I think the same goes for AI. It's like the more you use it, the better you get at it. And I think there's huge benefit to just getting familiar with it. For a lot of people, a bottleneck is just they didn't think about using AI for that specific use case. But if you get used to it, if you're kind of familiar with what it's good at, what it's not, I think you just become more. You're going to be able to get more value out of it as AI continues to evolve.
Didn't you say you built a tool to analyze just like stocks and shares and?
Yeah, I recently used a Grok. Like Grok has a feature to send me the daily emails of the deep research.
Oh.
So I wrote an investment thesis to specific public market stock. And okay, if this happens, the scenario is this, like a series of 5 points. And just every day, Grok runs a deep research, check the progress, whether did it go or not, and just he recommends me the actions. I'm not sure if this is the right way.
Buy now, sell now.
Buy now, sell now, like hold. So I eventually figure out like it's like foundation for like a lot of like AI workflow automations. Like, if this has happened, can this. So yeah, I'm starting to really enjoy that process. Like I've been a non-technical person, but then like even I get to, figure this out. So it's been pretty fun.
Yeah. The no-code tools are a great place to start too. I think that like the first place most people should start is just chatbots, right? Start with ChatGPT, start with Grok, and then as you get familiar, especially if you notice yourself prompting the same thing over and over again, then kind of turning that into maybe a custom GPT, right? And then if you notice that if you want it to happen all the time, regularly, like everyday email, then some of the tools have automations baked in, so send me an email every day. But for example, if you were getting an email every day from Grok, you could easily build a Zapier or N tool on top of it that would then parse out the email from Grok and then store it in a structured database for you. So then you could turn that into an app.
Simple. We're gonna make our first product based on this.
Yeah, totally. But then I mean, like on a high level, like it just I've been a huge fan of you, obviously.
Thank you.
And just I feel like it's so simple, just like, build in public and just learn and then use that, knowledge and experience to invest in companies and, try to solve the problem together. I feel like this thought process, and even just like we can call it framework and, and this should exist. And, like us, like a design, I'm also a designer. So, designers should also try and, like, it can be more than Figma, right? Like, so these days. So, I feel like, that's probably the biggest inspiration I got from you. So,
thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's fun. And I think if you have fun with it, it continues, right? That's part of my approach is like, I want to make it fun for myself. And so, some weekends I'll work on something that it's not going to contribute to like where AI is going to go. but I play a lot with Suno with my kids. Suno's an AI music generation app. Actually, it was started with Dolly. We had these we call them Dolly sessions, where we would get together with the kids, where we would each throw out a theme or an idea, and we would ask Dolly to generate an image combining all three.
What's an example that you guys?
It could be like unicorn, ninja, poop. Like it's gonna spit out an image that combines all three.
Yeah.
Right? So Dolly sessions were fun. And then when Suno came out, I started playing with Suno. So now we sometimes will do Suno sessions where I'll have one throw out a theme and one throw out a genre. And then we'll just like have it generate the music.
Yeah. You got to share that. We'll use that as our opening next time.
I have a whole, this was more of a personal project, but I have a whole album, music album about my kids.
Oh,
like
wow.
a couple songs for each of them and a couple songs that combine each of them. And like oftentimes the one that combine each of them, like it's all about like how well they get along and stuff. So I play it as a way to incept that idea so they don't fight.
I feel like for a lot of people it's like almost intimidating to try a lot of these things, but like I love that you approach it as such a fun thing. Like even for your kids growing up, like just trying new things, playing around with it, it's just like normal for them, right?
Yeah, at first they were like, "Did you hire somebody to make this song for us?" It's like kind of depends on what you mean by someone. And then eventually they now know it's like it's just an app.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's very detailed stuff, but like you start by building, right? So like how do you form conviction? Like so okay, let's say you have an idea, you build it, and then okay, I would love to, talk with the founders who are building in this space, but then you like what's inside your like thought process, like
It's really just kind of continued exploration, right? I think an example is AI memory as like a topic, right? Starting from when I was playing around with GraphRag, it's something I've been curious about. And like as an example, and again, this is more just sharing my thought process. As an example, I was thinking, well, I guess with social apps, right? There was the whole idea that network is a mode. But with a lot of these AI tools, you don't really need a network. If I use the same AI tool and it does a good job of remembering who I am, like it locks me in, right? ChatGPT knows so much more about me that I get more out of ChatGPT because of that. So then I thought, okay, maybe memory is a mode. I wasn't really sure about it. It was a half-baked idea, but I posted that general thought on Twitter. I was like, AI is a mode. With social network is a mode. With AI, the more it learns about you, like true or false. And I got so many different ideas. A lot of people said it was true. I think the way I phrased it was a little biased, but there were people saying no, that's not true. Right? Like more memory is not necessarily mode. More memory can lead to worse experiences. Memory is the worst name, but I get a lot of kind of ideas coming in through that. And through reading those comments and replying back to them and engaging with them, it slowly starts forming, right? I do think memory is a mode, but it has to be well structured. It's not just about storing the memory, but it's about structuring the memory and how you retrieve the memory, right? But again, it's not like there was a aha moment where my conviction suddenly existed, but it's through these continued both engagements with the technology and with the larger community that an idea gets kind of stronger and stronger. So the idea that memory is a mode feels stronger now because I have more data around it. But again, it's not. Yeah, it's ever evolving.
Interesting.
And I also think, in addition to asking questions online, posting open source projects online, even just retweeting ideas that you think are interesting can also be a signal, right? I often see interesting startups. So, if I think it's an interesting one, I might just retweet it. And then, interestingly, if you retweet something on Twitter, and if a lot of your followers engage with it, you get all those in your notifications. So I can quickly get a sense of like, oh, did this project resonate with my followers just by retweeting it, which is actually a really interesting, lightweight way to collect data.
I guess one other thing that came up to me is, do you feel like you've over time become a better investor? And I asked because we have another VC friend where he said it's still tough, right? Like if you're building a company, you feel like you're kind of getting an understanding. If you're a designer, you're kind of getting a sense of it. But for VC, sometimes it's like, I have no idea, and then it can suddenly switch to me like I was actually a genius.
Yeah, I think that's what makes VC like one of the things that makes it so interesting is the really, really long feedback loop, right? I've heard the same. I had a good mentor of mine I looked up to said, it takes you 10 years to find out if you're a good investor, and then by that time, like you only find out if you were a good investor 10 years ago. Right? Like I like he's saying, I know I was a good investor 10 years ago, but I have no idea if I'm a good investor today still.
Yeah.
Right? So I do think that's true. But to your question, I'd like to think I'm becoming a better investor. But again, it's hard to quantify that because also short-term success is not necessarily long-term success, right? A high TVPI, like the value of the companies invested in going up, is not necessarily an indicator of success because you also see companies, like if you're in a hyped market, you see valuations being too high and maybe the actual return does not correlate with that. So, but I do feel like I'm meeting incredible founders. I feel more conviction in the spaces I'm putting bets, building better relationships with upstream capital. So we're very process driven, right? A lot of VCs, when they talk about who they are, they talk about where they invest, like that's their identity. But I think where we invest as VCs should change over time because the market changes. So the problem with using the market you invest in as identity, and we've seen this, was you saw people who were calling themselves crypto and Web3 investors, and now they're now AI investors, right? I can say that throughout the whole time we've always been top down investors focused on our process, and I think being process driven, figuring out what your process is and iterating on that process is I think is the best way to become a good investor.
Love that.
And with that, I guess final message you want to send out to the world.
Well, if you're listening to this, you're probably already into AI, but if you're not, then like I'd say please start playing around with ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and those AI tools. And if you are playing with those already, look for fun AI startups and new tools and experiment with them. I think the more people experiment, the more people learn. Share your experiments, share your learnings. You'll connect with like-minded people, and you'll accelerate your learning even further.